Hello, welcome to another video. There was a video before this one and there is going to be a video after this one. So today, it's been a couple weeks since I made a video. I've just been, doing the same thing as always, scrounging for a little bit of money and just kind of getting by, occasionally doing a little bit of work on the car. Recently what I've been doing on the car is trying to dial in the lounge mode for the bed. So there's like this, excuse my bed's not made, I got some creamers here, hold on. So the last 2 feet of the platform in that direction, there's a hinge over there. And so it can lift up and this whole platform folds in 2 places to make it a little smaller, a little easier to get out of the car. But that last 2 feet, I've been trying to find a way to like lift it up and angle it so that I can lounge there like I'm on a couch or a seat or something. So I have like a backboard, and I built this desk. Hold on a second. I built this desk for my laptop. This top piece has been with me for like 8 years. Originally it was a backing board for when I sat in my car in the original first renovation I did like 8 years ago, 8 or 9 years ago now. So this has been with me, and I've been using it as a sort of desktop for my laptop for a while now. And I decided, since I'm gonna be doing some work behind this driver's seat, which is gonna force the driver's seat to stay forward and up in the forward and up position for the rest of its life, so that I can have room behind this. I'm not going to be able to use this desk in the driver's seat anymore, so I need to make sure that I can use my laptop and edit videos and upload videos and everything from the bed, or from the back seat at least, somewhere back there. So I built this, and I'm still trying to dial it in. I'm probably gonna have to shorten the legs a little bit. I do have this little piece under here to stabilize the back legs, and I need to buy another panel of wood because all of my wood is too short to do the front legs. But it's, I need to sand and finish it and everything. It has some old glue and stuff on it, but this is what I got. And I'm trying to dial in the lounge mode, make the angle a little steeper. I need to cut some things. I need to arrange some things. Some kind of like latch system in the back there so that it can, something back there can hold the platform up. But anyway, that's what I've been working on recently. It's just a slow process, as always. But I'd also like to get a new pillow, and I still want to get some foam, some upholstery foam to make a pad, like a foam pad, so that I can stop using this inflatable pad, or at the very least have like another layer of, because this is comfortable enough, but it's like not super soft, it's not super comfortable. So I'm trying to just improve the bed in general. And I know that the sink is gonna cost me a lot of money. First of all, I'm gonna need to order a foot pump, which means I'm gonna need to buy a mailbox. So I'm probably gonna need around like at least $100 for like a year of a small mailbox so that I can order mail. And then I can order that foot pump, because I've been looking around at stores and I haven't seen anything that's gonna work. They're all like electric pumps, and I don't have a way to run electricity like that except for just this little converter that I use to charge my laptop. But anyway, the sink is gonna be expensive is what I'm saying, and I'm waiting until somebody gives me enough money for that, or at least enough money for like the parts individually, because I need a tank, I need some tubes, I need the pump, I need something that's going to act as a sink, and I have some plastic containers back there, but none of them are the right size or shape. But I probably will end up using some kind of plastic bin for the sink. Just cut a hole in it, put a drain in there, and that'll be my sink. Because sinks are expensive and they're heavy, and they're very large a lot of the time, and I think it would just be a lot easier and cheaper for me to just use a plastic container for that. But anyway, that's sort of where I'm at. Putting in the sink is kind of like the last thing I'm gonna do before finishing and painting the wood and everything. as far as I know. I'll probably still add wood to like the back window and the side windows for the insulation. It's Autism Awareness Month, so what this video is actually about is autism. I'm going to be talking about it once again. If you don't know, I am autistic. I've been diagnosed with autism a couple years ago, and I don't talk about it a whole lot on this channel, but it is a big focal point of my life and my experience in life. So it's Autism Awareness Month, so let's talk about it. I'm gonna take these sunglasses off. So why did it take me so long to get diagnosed with autism? Like, why did I not think I could have autism? Why did I not consider it as an option? So I only got diagnosed with autism a couple years ago, and I only started taking it seriously as a possibility for me like 2.5 years ago, so like a few months before that. And yeah, so like my entire life I did have like mental health issues. Like I knew that I was like mentally ill. You know, a lot of people around me were saying that I had problems, that I was a problem child and all that kind of stuff. And I knew, just sort of like, just based on my history, my childhood, and like the events that happened, I kind of knew that that wasn't normal from a very young age. And so I figured, you know, from a young age, like I'm a mentally ill person, and I'm gonna need therapy, and I'm gonna need psychiatry and all this stuff. And so my first experiences with a psychiatrist were when I was 14, and my parents finally took me to a psychiatrist. I've been asking for family counseling because I wanted them to be involved in the process too. I wanted my parents to be involved, but they refused because they took that as suggestion as an implication that they were doing anything wrong at all, and they thought it was all completely my fault and my problem, that they were having trouble raising me, that, you know, I was having issues in school and in life in general. So yeah, they put me in psychiatry, and I asked for therapy, and they took me to a psychiatrist, which is not a therapist. And the psychiatrist just put me on some medications, diagnosed me with bipolar 2 disorder, which is a common thing that girls get diagnosed with instead of autism. When girls are like autistic, it's actually quite common for them to get diagnosed with bipolar 2. And I was a girl at the time. Another big reason that so like I was told that I have bipolar disorder, and I accepted that. I just accepted that. I was like, okay, I have bipolar disorder. Around that time, I also started to realize that I was trans and have some words for that, and start to formulate sort of a plan and like my goals and desires in regards to transition. And that was also a big point of tension between me and my parents, because, you know, they were like, okay, we don't mind if you do it, but you're gonna do it on your own money and on your own time, and you're gonna wait till you're 18. Which is a perfectly reasonable thing for them to think, but it did have a massive negative and traumatizing impact on my life, having to go through puberty and then do it again, but I'm paying money for it this time. And I've always struggled to, you know, get money and maintain jobs and things like that, so I kind of understood that, like, if they don't help me out, I'm gonna have a really hard time doing this really big, important thing to me that is gonna help out my mental health a lot. But anyway, I sort of went with bipolar 2, and I was, you know, doing research on it, and like depression and trauma and anxiety and all of these things that kind of come with the territory of mental health. And, you know, nobody was really talking about autism the way they do today. Or if they were, I wasn't involved in any of that conversation. I didn't see it happening. So I sort of just went with the assumption with bipolar 2, and I did a lot of research about that, and I was taking medications for it. I was taking things like Prozac and Seroquel and Trileptal, mood stabilizers, Wellbutrin eventually, you know, a lot of different medications I tried, and none of them really made a big enough impact for it to really even be noticeable. Like, if I tried really hard, I could think, yeah, I mean, I guess I'm kind of feel a little more numb than usual, but I don't really feel better, and I don't really feel more capable, and this isn't really helping me do things. It's not really solving the issue of like my executive function and things like that. So instead of thinking that maybe I was misdiagnosed and that actually I should consider some other option, I basically thought that like, oh, I'm just an untreatable case. I just can't be treated. And like, I tried my darndest, and I kept going to therapy and kept going to different psychiatrists, and I was like, eventually I did kind of give up on psychiatry, and the last medication I took was a mild anti-anxiety, and as needed. And I was basically like, if I could just get something for my anxiety, maybe that would help a bit. Something that could like dull the anxiety when I feel it, maybe that would help. But like, I basically just considered myself like an untreatable case, like a very, very difficult case, because I'd gone through all of this, stuff since the age of 14. And by the time I was in my mid-20s, none of it had worked. None of it had gotten me anywhere. And I tried all kinds of different things, and I was considering like, okay, the last thing that I could really try is like, what's it called, like the transcranial magnetic therapy, right? TCM, I think it is, where they give you like magnet treatments to your skull, which changes like the way that your neurons fire, and it can treat depression temporarily. And then there's also electric ECT, I think it is, where they use electricity instead of magnets to basically give you like a little seizure, and you're supposed to feel good for a couple weeks after that, and just do that like once a month for the rest of your life. Just give yourself a seizure once a month for the rest of your life, and that's your treatment, right? And those were the options that I was genuinely considering, because all of the other things I tried didn't work. The problem is that those things were not covered by my insurance, which has always been, like, since I left my parents, it's always been just like whatever state insurance for the state that I live in. So like Medicaid or Medicare or whatever it is. And so like, I couldn't access those extreme treatments, and I'm very glad in hindsight that I didn't have access to them and that I didn't actually try them, because I would have. I was very desperate to find some kind of solution to my problems and, fix myself, just get better, because I thought, I'm just a complete abject failure. Like, my parents don't want to take care of me anymore, and I keep, trying to get in with these friend groups and make friends with people, and I keep trying to, keep jobs and, just the basic things you need to be an adult in this world. I just could not accomplish them, no matter how hard I tried, and no matter what treatments I went through. So I was really desperate to find some kind of fix to my problems. Another thing is that I was really, really focused on my transition, which I don't regret that, because the transition definitely did help. I really wanted to get on testosterone, and I really wanted to get top surgery. Those were the two main things that I felt would really, really help with this dysphoria that I've been feeling. And I got on testosterone, when I was 19 years old. I started, and I was on it consistently for a couple years, I think. And since then, I've had trouble affording it. I've been moving around a lot, switching doctors and switching pharmacies and switching states, and every state has a different rule and different coverage for it. And testosterone is not easy to get. It's straight up not easy to get. So I haven't been able to be on it consistently, and I'm not on it right now, but I've been on it for long enough that it has made changes to my body that I'm satisfied with. I would like to not have a menstrual cycle anymore, but it doesn't cause me as much distress as it used to by a long shot. So I'm sort of not, it's not a priority anymore. And especially after I got top surgery, like, that was the best day of my life. The day I got top surgery was the best day of my life. And like, I wouldn't be able to appear on camera. I wouldn't be able to go grocery shopping without like pain in my chest and in my heart, and like emotional pain, and I wouldn't be able to appear in public with any amount of confidence whatsoever. Top surgery completely changed my life, and that was a real turning point. But it didn't do as much as I thought it would, right? It didn't make me not depressed anymore. It didn't, at the time I got top surgery, I still thought I had bipolar disorder. And I thought, having less dysphoria would help me cope with the mood swings that come with bipolar disorder. And it kind of did, right? Like I said, it gave me confidence, and it allowed me to do things like just to go into public without feeling just horribly distraught about myself. It really did change my life for the better, significantly. And so did the testosterone. But again, it just didn't, it didn't make me not autistic anymore, right? Like, that's something that's really never going to change. And so I was, doing well for a little while after I got top surgery, but then things just, didn't really get as better as I thought they would, and they didn't get better enough. So I ended up homeless again after that. At the time that I got top surgery, I was living with a friend and his family, and that experience of living with those people actually did help me realize that maybe bipolar disorder is not the diagnosis, because that's what I had told them, and I told them before I moved in with them, like, as a warning, like, I have these mental issues, right? I can get upset a lot. I can get really depressed. I can fail to function in any capacity for significant periods of time. And, like, just so you know, I'm not going to be the type of person that is, on top of everything all the time. And they were like, yeah, that's fine as long as you're trying to improve. And that's, the message everybody sends. And as long as you get better eventually, and what they mean by eventually is very soon, then, it's not really a problem. And so my goal has always just been to get better. And I think this was around the time that I started doing a little more research on autism. And I started seeing it, like, pop up in my YouTube recommendations, like videos about autism and, like, 10 signs you might have autism and that kind of stuff. And I did what I've always done, which is just do a lot of research about it. And I think the key to it is that, when I thought I had bipolar disorder, I did a lot of research on bipolar disorder. And I was able to apply the research that I did, like the knowledge that I gained, to my own behavior. But it never really, like, truly seemed to match up. It sort of almost seemed like I was describing someone else through, like, a lens of my own experience, if that makes sense. Like, it just didn't, like, click. It just didn't click. I don't know how else to describe it. It was like I could sort of correlate these things and be like, yeah, I mean, sometimes I'm really happy for a while and then I get really depressed for a while. But I don't know if I would say, like, the happiness periods are enough to constitute, like, a mania. Like, I've never had mania. I've never really even had, like, hypomania necessarily. And, like, the time scales were kind of off. And, like, just, it didn't quite match up, although there were things that I could point to and say, yeah, I guess that's kind of sort of similar to what I do. But it just didn't really match up. And especially when the treatments didn't work after so long, I was like, something's wrong here. So I did a very painful and difficult thing, and I opened myself up to the possibility that I might be autistic. And as I was doing the research, it started clicking, right? Like, I did around, like, a bit over 10 years of research thinking that I had bipolar disorder, thinking that I had bipolar 2. I did a bit over 10 years worth of research on that and treatments, and it never clicks the whole time. And then within, like, a couple weeks of researching autism and trying to correlate that to my behavior, it clicked. I was like, wait a minute, this really, really makes sense. And I didn't want it to be correct. I really did not want to have autism. I just did not want to have autism. I thought, the people that I've known that were autistic, they don't act like me, right? Like, I'm socially awkward, but I don't think I'm, like, completely socially inept. I don't think I'm noticeably socially inept. But then again, if I'm not noticeably, socially different from other people, why do they treat me differently all the time? Why do people always treat me as if I'm, like, weird, or like I have two heads or something like that? Like, why are people always bullying me? Why do I not like understand these social structures that I live under? Or like I understand them, but I don't think that they're right, and like nobody else can see that. And like, you know, all of these things just that just really, really match up, and I just sort of never noticed. I just never noticed before. And then as soon as I noticed, I couldn't stop seeing it. Like, I don't have an intellectual disability, although after years and years of burnout, there are times when it definitely feels like I do. But I don't have an intellectual disability. In fact, I was told that I was like a gifted kid, right? Like I had so much intelligence and potential, and like I could do anything I wanted because I was so smart. And so, you know, I didn't have savant syndrome, that's for sure, but I was one of those like gifted kids, right? And we know where that pipeline ends up. And, you know, I just thought I was like nerdy and just kind of a bit socially awkward, and like that if I tried hard enough, people would never really notice. But even when I tried, it felt very strange. And then I learned about masking, and I was like, oh, that's exactly what it feels like when I'm trying so hard to fit in with people and it just doesn't feel like me. And then I go home at the end of the day, and whenever I'm alone, that's the real me, right? Like that kind of experience really resonated with me. And then I started to remember things like from my childhood. I started to remember, you know, unfair situations that I was in, and bullying, and the amount of like alone time that I had, and the way that I played as a child. And before I started researching autism, I didn't have access to most of my childhood memories. And then after I started researching autism and connecting those symptoms to my behavior and it started clicking, that's when I started to remember without any effort at all. Just occasionally, just spontaneously, I would have memories from my childhood pop up, and I would be like, wait a minute, that really happened, and that's a sign of autism. Like it was like, you know, my mind was blocking these memories from me until I was at a point where I could contextualize them the proper way without judging myself negatively and like punishing myself retrospectively for it, right? So like I spent a lot of time alone as a kid, and if I'd thought about that and remembered that before I was autistic, or before I realized I was autistic, I probably would have been very ashamed. I probably would have been like, oh, I should have been more social as a kid, and then I would know how to socialize now. And that context of remembering that memory would have been extremely painful and just shameful. But then remembering after, you know, realizing that I might have autism, remembering that afterwards is sort of like, oh, that just makes sense. That just makes sense. And that's where I found a peace as a child, was alone time. And I was actually doing the best thing for me, right? Like even though the people around me were sort of failing me on all fronts, the adults in my life and the older people in my life were sort of failing to understand me, I, even at that young age, did understand myself enough to know what I needed, which was time away from people, you know, autonomy, sensory seeking behaviors I started remembering too, where, you know, I would like squish myself really hard between like walls, and like anything that I could pull up against me that was heavy enough, I would squish myself. And that's not something that kids do normally. That's not a normal thing for kids to do. It's a sensory seeking behavior. I wanted the pressure. That's also an indicator that I wasn't held or hugged enough as a child, or touched gently enough as a child. And that's another thing that I remembered too. And my phone is running out of space, so I gotta pause this and delete some shit. Hold on. Okay, I'm back. I got 10 more minutes to finish this video. So, the other thing I remembered about my childhood, and this is something that's actually kind of stuck with me, and it's something that has been happening for my entire life. So it wasn't like a childhood memory that got unlocked, but I did remember more occurrences of this and recontextualize all of them after realizing that I had autism. And it's meltdowns. I've been having meltdowns for my entire life. From the shutdowns to the crying, sobbing fits to the rage fits. And it's always been a really like embarrassing and just really difficult thing to deal with and to go through. Because it's, you know, when people witness that kind of thing, they really change their opinion of you, and they really change the way they treat you. And it didn't help at all with the bullying and people, you know, deciding that they've had enough with me and then kicking me out to, be whatever, to have whatever fate I will, which most of the time has ended up being homeless. So I'd have meltdowns, and I always thought that like this was just like a bipolar thing. Like I didn't like no nothing that I read about bipolar disorder seemed to indicate that I would have something like a rage fit, but like the sobbing fits and like the shutdowns and things that kind of tracked. But the rage fits are actually, unfortunately for me, the most common, and I've had to learn over the years like how to hold that in until I can get to a place where I can safely vent that anger out and then process whatever is happening. And so like I would have these meltdowns, and they would happen like pretty frequently. When I was a kid, it was like at least every couple months, and then as an adult, it can happen even more often. Sometimes, I go quite a while without one, but I'm under a lot of stress, and stress causes those meltdowns. I get emotionally overwhelmed, I get physically overwhelmed, and I'm in a situation where it is impossible for me to adequately rest from that overwhelm and to adequately process it. So I do my best, but unfortunately I've had to accept that I'm just going to keep having meltdowns until my situation improves. And what I've done is I've learned how to ride them out safely and privately so that I don't affect other people, right? So that other people don't end up scared of me, thinking that because I'm in a fit of rage that I'm gonna hurt them, which I've never done. I've always had the control to be able to not hurt other people, even when I really, really wanted to. But I don't want people to think that I'm going to, or call the cops on me or anything like that. It's just give me like 10 minutes to be really, really, really unbelievably pissed off and to like hit something or throw some trash, and then I'll get over it and I'll pick up my mess and move on. It's not really that big of a deal to me. It's very uncomfortable, right? It's like physically exhausting and emotionally exhausting, but that's kind of the point, right? It's to sort of get all of that negative energy out of me, and then I'm too tired and then I have to rest. And over the years I've just kind of learned to deal with it, and then after realizing that I had autism, after really considering the possibility, I've gotten a lot better at it a lot quicker. So really, like, accepting that I had autism is the only thing that's improved my condition, like mentally speaking. It's the only thing that's improved my mental health. But I mean, my point is that like I spent a lot of my life, most of my life up until this point, thinking that I was just wrong and broken and that I needed to be fixed and that I was a difficult case. And accepting that I have autism was difficult for a couple reasons. Mainly because it's not something that can be cured. A lot of people think it can be cured, like you can be trained to be social and to mask and all of this stuff, but it's not sustainable. I tried covertly doing those things, right, without even realizing I have been masking my entire life. And this is a common experience for people with autism, and actually letting down the mask, letting the mask go, has been a challenge for me, but it's been a very relaxing challenge. It's been very fulfilling, and it's actually helped me a lot with my anxiety and like my self-worth and confidence. And so that's something that I really needed to do, was let go of the mask. But that has the caveat that it makes me seem more autistic to the rest of the world, which causes more stigma and bullying and all these things that come along with just who I am and how I am. And it was difficult, but also it was sort of like, I'm tired of being told that I'm just irreparably broken, right? I'm tired of feeling that way, at least, and getting that sort of message from the world around me. And realizing that I'm autistic has changed it from like, you're irreparably broken, to you're just kind of different and the world doesn't know what to do about that. The world isn't set up for people like you, which is devastating in its own way. Like, don't get me wrong, that is horrible, right? Realizing that I'm autistic has not helped me escape from homelessness. In fact, it's made me realize that I probably don't want to have a normal life, right? And that I'm not really cut out. Like the things that I would need to do to achieve, like renting an apartment and maintaining a job and things like that, are just not sustainable or healthy for me. And so this, as unhealthy as it is actually the healthiest way that I could possibly be. The healthiest life that I could live at this moment with the resources I have and with the way the world is. And that is, really devastating in its own way, but it's sort of like, at least I know what's going on now. At least I know what's going on. Alright. Finally, I've deleted enough stuff off of my phone to finish this recording. So, yeah, I guess to sort of wrap this up, considering the possibility that I had autism and doing that research and figuring it out, it helped a lot. It made me sort of less uncertain about myself and about my place in the world and like all of these things. But unfortunately, what I had realized is that my place in the world is as an autistic person, and that is not a very pleasant place to be in this world. People aren't going to treat me well. People aren't going to understand me. People are, there's no systems in place to help me, and things are just going to be difficult for me. Like, I'm not going to have the same energy levels as other people, right? Like, I used to watch videos of like Casey Neistat and like Bo Miles. If you've seen his YouTube, he's this Australian guy that has this big property in Australia, and he does things like running a mile around his property and building things for his wife and all this stuff. And it's like he has such a dream life, and he's such a motivated person, like a type A type of Michelle Carre, people like that. I used to watch those kinds of videos and just feel so ashamed that I could not be like those people. And now I watch those kinds of videos and I'm like, okay, good for them. I'm never going to be that type of person, but I have my own value and my own merit in other ways, right? Like I have more of a slow energy. I can talk to you about philosophy for an hour, or like science, or whatever, right? I'm not going to be able to have like normal like conversations that you would see. Like that's just not who I am, and I'm okay with that. And there's sort of like, instead of like trying really hard to mask and trying really hard to like present myself as a normal, healthy person just like everybody else, and failing and just feeling so much fear and shame and things like that, instead of that, I now have the confidence and sort of the internal like permission to be myself, to not mask as much, and hopefully eventually not mask at all, and try not to care about what people. It's a process. I'm still not very good at not caring what other people think of me, but at some point I will get there, and there's already moments where I can tell that somebody is judging me negatively, like they think I'm weird, they think what I said was weird or whatever, and like I just don't care, and I'm free of that shameful sensation of like, oh shit, I did something wrong and I'm gonna be bullied because of this. And like, along with that is gonna come protecting myself from bullying, which over the years, I've been in contact with a lot of people with narcissistic tendencies and a lot of people with manipulative tendencies, and I've been gaslit a lot and just abused in general. And so I have experience with that, and I can sort of avoid those things and protect myself from those things. And that skill is only going to get better as time goes on. And then I can try to balance that with, socializing with people in a way that is good for both of us. What I've found, and what I've sort of always known this in some sense, but what another thing that I realized I can attribute to autism is that like people, when they don't have negative judgments of me, they have positive judgments of me, right? They think I'm weird in a unique and interesting way until they see me have like a meltdown or like a bad mental health day or a bad emotional day, or they see me get like overwhelmed because the room is too loud and the lights are too bright, and I get kind of pissy about it. I'm like, oh man, I hate being here right now. And they're like, oh, just get over it like everybody else, right? But, right, they don't realize that that's actually like a painful experience for me. But as soon as, until they see those kinds of things where they're like, oh, maybe this guy isn't actually all that great, they think of me as a charismatic, interesting, unique kind of person. I have all these strange stories that I tell just off the cuff. I talk about my interests just like for no reason, and people are like, wow, that's interesting, and like, I can talk to people and interact with people in a way that they find interesting. That kind of makes me like the center of attention, that makes me like the most interesting person in the room. And I don't like that, because I don't like being the center of attention, because as soon as I let those people down, they're going to start bullying me. They're going to turn on me, right? And that's been my experience. But I think if I can like stop caring so much about the turning on me part of it and just be myself and be that charismatic person, if I can sort of step into the energy I bring to the room, which I have to accept is a very different energy from everybody else, then, maybe I can do something with that, right? And there's certain things where I can learn how to interact with people in a way that's not going to freak them out. And, again, just have my meltdowns privately. If I'm overwhelmed, instead of like visibly showing irritation about it, or like making it other people's problem, I can just sort of excuse myself. And like, there's certain things I can do, right? And understanding that I have autism is going to help. It's going to help me sort of figure out like how people are going to think of me in certain situations, and what I can do to mesh with the world in a better way, in a sustainable way. And that's going to involve some things that are very different, right? I'm no longer, like, I no longer have the goal of just being normal and fixing myself. Instead, now I have the goal of figuring out how I can exist in this world that doesn't know what to do with me, right? And so it's a completely different challenge. It's a completely different process, and it's shifted, and I'm actually having success with this. And it's actually working. Unlike any of the other things that I did for the past, like, over a decade of trying to, like, fix my mental health and just fix myself, I've even been able to accept things like, I might always be depressed sometimes. Maybe I can get to a point where I'm depressed less, but if I find myself in a state of depression, I can understand immediately that that is not a shameful place to be. It doesn't mean that I'm broken. I might really, really, really want to do some work right now, but I'm depressed, and that means I need to rest. And so I'm going to take the day off. I'm going to eat a comforting meal. I'm going to, just relax and do, get some easy dopamine, and then try to meditate and sleep well, and do some things that aren't too stressful and challenging, but will still make me feel, energized. I just have all of these things that I can do, instead of, oh, I'm depressed. Oh, shit. Oh, I need to get undepressed now. I need to get undepressed now, right? I need to get unautistic now. Like, I can't do those things. Instead, I need to accommodate them. Instead of just getting rid of them, I need to accommodate them, and realize that these things they're just reality. They're just going to happen. Right? Like meltdowns, they're just going to happen. I'm going to get overwhelmed. The world is a very difficult place for me to exist in, and that's unfortunate, right? But on the flip side, I can experience immense amounts of joy for like practically no reason, right? Something that would really not have that much of an effect on other people. I can find, beauty in it. I can find interest in it. I can find meaning in it. I can find joy in it, and that can help in ways that other people just aren't going to understand. So, yeah, I'm kind of rambling now. I kind of, didn't super plan this out. I didn't really make that many notes for this video. I just wanted to talk about something for this month. It's Autism Awareness Month. And now that I'm aware that I'm autistic, there's implications to that. So, yeah, I sort of didn't realize that I was autistic for a long time, for similar reasons to other people, right? It's very common for girls with autism to get diagnosed with bipolar disorder. And, my parents didn't do a great job. When I told my dad that I was autistic, he didn't say a thing. I told him, so yeah, I got my autism diagnosis. I'm officially diagnosed with autism. And there was just silence on the other end. And then we moved on, and we've never discussed it since. So, you know, even if that had been considered as a possibility when I was younger, I don't think anything would have been done about it until I became an adult. But then it took me until I was like 26 to really consider the possibility. And I sort of didn't want to be autistic, right? Because the autistic people that I knew and that I had met in the past, I didn't really know much about them, but I just sort of saw them and I was like, that's not me. That's not what I'm like. But turns out I'm a different kind of autistic that's a little more subtle. And I really didn't want to believe that I could have autism, because it's just such a difficult thing to have. Like it means basically that I'm not fixable, right? That I'm gonna be like this my entire life. And the only thing I can do with it is cope with it and accommodate it and just try to find a little place in the world that I can be myself and relax and chill out. And that's my car. Right now, that's my car. And I'm actually making pretty good progress. I know in the last video I said I could be doing more, and I still kind of feel that way. But when I really think about it, like looking at some old pictures of how my car was before I started this, it's only taken me a couple months to just completely change it. And it's still kind of a mess, and there's still things that I need to do with it. But this is not something that other people would be able to do as easily as I've been able to do it. Like emotionally, that is. Like to live in this vehicle for 10 years and have it progressively become just a horrible mess with mold everywhere and trash everywhere and everything. And then to just say, you know, I'm no longer going to wait for a better situation to come along. I'm going to make the situation I'm in better, because I'm going to be here indefinitely. Like I don't see a possible end in sight, so I might as well make this position in life as comfortable as I can. And that's, you know, kind of just what's been motivating me. And it's very difficult, it sucks, and I'm not having a great time. I'm really not having a great time, but I'm alive, and I think there's something at least fulfilling about that. And I really, really just hope that at some point in the future, the world is going to be able to accommodate autistic people better, that we're going to learn more about autistic people, that we're going to stop all of this, like, oh, you're trainable, you can be trained, you can learn to be social, and, you know, people are going to understand eventually that, like, there's nothing necessarily wrong with us, that the negative symptoms and the harmful symptoms that we experience as autistic people typically can be resolved without turning us into something other than autistic, right? Without changing the basic character of who we are and our goals, you know, without removing our autonomy, you know, that kind of thing. I really hope that the world is going to become a better place for autistic people in the future, because this is tough. This is really, really tough. Like, being autistic in this world is really, really, really tough, and it's especially tough that people just don't get it. That people just don't understand. So, yeah, that's the video for today. Thank you so much for watching. I am homeless. I live in my car. I'm unemployed. I'm not going to get a job. I live entirely on donations that I get from kind people on the internet. So if you'd like to support me financially, any amount will help. $1, $2, $5, whatever. There will be links in the description and probably on screen. And yeah, thank you so much for watching, and have a peaceful day.